Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Public Improvement Commission hearing of September 20th, 2018. Our first item is to note that the hearing minutes of September 6th, 2018 have been reviewed and approved by the PIC team. Our first item is a public hearing continued on a petition by DJ Properties LLC for the widening and relocation of the existing right-of-way lines of Damrell Street, a public way in South Boston, on its southwesterly side between Old Colony Avenue and Ewer Street. This was new business on June 21st, 2018. Had its first public hearing on July 12th, 2018. Had its first public hearing continued on August 9th, 2018. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Highway Easement Plan, Damrell Street, Public Way, Washington Village, South Boston, 2 sheets dated June 2018.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is John Schmidt with Niche Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of DJ Properties LLC. We are going to request a withdrawal without prejudice for the first 7 hearings, continued public hearings. The design is being revisited based on some new programming and other components that are outside of my control. So this will be at the ask for the next 7 hearings.
John, just want to be on the same page with you. The next, so that includes Chippewa Way.
Yeah, everything. Yep, through continued public hearing number 7.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the chair needs to open each one, and you need to say that thing without the prejudice.
I'm so sorry for that.
I apologize. Other questions or comments for John on this? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right. I'll entertain a motion to withdraw without prejudice this first item.
Make a motion to withdraw without prejudice, public hearing number 1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Moving on to our second item, on a joint petition by DJ Properties LLC and the City of Boston Public Works Department for the abandonment of any and all rights to travel the public may have had within the private way portion of Alger Street, South Boston, from Dorchester Avenue to its southeasterly terminus. This was new business on June 21st, 2018. Its first public hearing on July 12th, 2018. The public hearing continued on August 9th, 2018. This is as shown on a plan entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Abandonment Plan, Alger Street, Private Way, Washington Village, South Boston, 1 sheet dated May 30th, 2018.
Good morning, John Schmidt with Niche Engineering. On behalf of DJ Properties LLC and the City of Boston, we're requesting withdrawal without prejudice.
Any questions or comments for John? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion on this request for withdrawal without prejudice.
I'll make a motion to withdraw item number 2 on the agenda without prejudice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Moving on to our third item, on a joint petition by DJ Properties LLC and the City of Boston Public Works Department for the approval of the line and grade of a new public way in South Boston known as Alger Street from Dorchester Avenue to a point approximately 725 feet southeasterly at the proposed Chippewa Way, located generally between Damrell Street and Middle Street. This was new business on June 21st, 2018. Its first public hearing on July 12th, 2018, and its first public hearing continued on August 9th, 2018. It is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Line and Grade Approval, Alger Street, Public Way, Washington Village, South Boston, 5 sheets dated June 2018.
Good morning, John Schmidt with Niche Engineering. On behalf of DJ Properties LLC and the City of Boston, we would like to withdraw without prejudice.
Amy, just a procedural point. John has the permission to speak on behalf of the petitioner. Thank you.
Other questions or comments? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right. I'll entertain a motion on this request to withdraw without prejudice.
Make a motion to withdraw public hearing item number 3 without prejudice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Moving on to our next item on a petition by DJ Properties LLC for the approval of the line and grade of a new public way in South Boston known as Chippewa Way from Damrell Street to Alger Street, located generally between Old Colony Avenue and Ewer Street. This was new business on June 21st, 2018, had its first public hearing on July 12th, 2018, and its public hearing continued on August 9th, 2018. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Line and Grade Approval, Chippewa Way, Public Way, Washington Village, South Boston, 4 sheets dated June 2018.
Good morning, John Schmidt with Niche Engineering. On behalf of DJ Properties LLC, we are requesting withdrawal without prejudice.
Any questions for John? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion to withdraw without prejudice. Item number 4.
I'll make a motion to withdraw item number 4 without prejudice.
Second.
All All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Moving on to our fifth item, on a petition by DJ Properties LLC for the layout approval of an extension of Ewer Street, a private way open to public travel in South Boston from Damrell Street to the proposed Alger Street. This was new business on June 21st, 2018, had its first public hearing on July 12th, 2018, and its first public hearing continued on August 9th, 2018. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Layout Approval, Ewer Street, Washington Village, private way open to public travel, South Boston, 2 sheets dated June 2018.
Good morning, John Schmidt with Niche Engineering. On behalf of DJ Properties LLC, we would like to withdraw without prejudice.
Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion on this request to withdraw without prejudice.
I'll make a motion to withdraw item number 5 without prejudice.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Moving on to item number 6, on a petition by DJ Properties LLC for the acceptance of pedestrian easements adjacent to the following public ways in South Boston. Old Colony Avenue on its westerly side between Damrell Street and Dorchester Street on its northwesterly side southwest of Old Colony Avenue. This was new business on June 21st, 2018. Had its first public hearing on July 12th, 2018. Had its public hearing continued on August 9th, 2018. And this is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Pedestrian Easement Plan, Old Colony Avenue, Dorchester Street, Public Way, Washington Village, South Boston, 2 sheets dated June 2018.
Good morning, John Schmidt with Niche Engineering. On behalf of DJ Properties LLC, we would request to withdraw without prejudice.
John? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right. I'll entertain a motion to withdraw this item without prejudice.
I'll make a motion to withdraw public hearing number 6 without prejudice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Moving on to our 7th item, on a petition by DJ Properties LLC for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in South Boston, consisting of curb realignment, roadway, sidewalk, and pedestrian ramp reconstruction, as well as new and relocated specialty pavements, street irrigation infrastructure, storm drain infrastructure, bike racks, street trees, landscaping, irrigation infrastructure, and driveway curb cuts. Locations are Damrell Street on its southwesterly side between Old Colony Avenue and Ewer Street, Old Colony Avenue on its westerly side between Damrell Street and Dorchester Street, Dorchester Street on its northwesterly side southwest of Old Colony Avenue. This was new business on June 21st, 2018. Had its first public hearing on July 12th, 2018. A public hearing continued on August 9th, 2018. This is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repairs Plan, Damrell Street, Old Colony Avenue, Dorchester Street, Washington Village, a public way in South Boston, 5 sheets, dated June 2018.
Good morning, John Schmidt with Niche Engineering. On behalf of DJ Properties LLC, we are requesting a withdrawal without prejudice.
Questions for John? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion to withdraw without prejudice this item.
I'll make a motion to withdraw item number 7 without prejudice.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So moved.
And on behalf of myself and my client, we thank you for your patience and understanding.
Moving on to our 8th item, on a joint petition by CVPA Chain Forge LLC and the Boston Planning and Development Agency for the making of specific repairs within the following public ways in Charlestown, consisting of curb, sidewalk, and pedestrian ramp reconstruction, as well as new and relocated specialty pavement, street trees, irrigation infrastructure, and driveway curb cuts. Locations are First Avenue on its northwesterly side at address number 105, between 9th Street and 13th Street, 9th Street on its northeasterly side, northwest of First Avenue, 13th Street on its southwesterly side, northwest of First Avenue. This was new business on August 23rd, 2018, and its first public hearing on September 6th, 2018. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repairs Plan, First Avenue, 9th Street and 13th Street, Charlestown, 2 sheets dated June 7th, 2018.
Morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Rebecca Lee with MINS, and to my left is Yvette Tetro from CVPA Chain Forge and Fred Keeler from HW Moore, the civil engineers for this project. This project is the renovation of a 40-year-long vacant building acquired from the United States as part of the Charleston Navy Yard acquisition. It is an historic building in a historic monument area and will be rehabilitated into a hotel with approximately 220 rooms, meeting space, and a ground floor restaurant. It still contains historic equipment that will be incorporated into public area and available for the public for the first time. All of the obsolete equipment has been removed. This project is at a point where we have the necessary BPDA approval, and the BPDA, our co-petitioner, is here represented by Sean Mayhill, counsel to the BPDA. So we're here to receive two approvals, and the first of which is specific repairs, and they are on the 3 city streets that are adjacent to the property. The 4th street adjacent to the property is 2nd Avenue, owned by the BPDA. So the first is the specific repairs which Fred will review.
So in terms of specific repairs, in addition to reconstructing the cement concrete sidewalks, we will be installing some new edge stone to close out some existing curb cuts, 2 on 9th Street and 2 on 13th Street. We'll be removing 10 existing trees and planting 16 replacement trees. There was a tree removal hearing with Parks and Recreation on August 2nd, and there was no opposition to that request. We are proposing a 20-foot wide curb cut off of 9th Street, which will serve as a driveway for the hotel service, back of house service area. We are also proposing 7 new accessible ramps and 2 crosswalks, new crosswalks, 1 on 9th and 1 on 13th. There'll be 4 valet parking spaces, which are better illustrated on this rendered site plan at the main hotel entrance on First Ave. And lastly, we do have a 12-inch perforated storm drain along the First Ave frontage of the building, which was requested by Conservation and Boston Water and Sewer, and that's to receive the roof leaders from the First Avenue side of the building. So that summarizes the specific repairs that we are proposing.
Ms. Lee, the maintenance agreement.
Is under legal review with JC Council.
As far as the, go ahead.
Sarah, you okay with?
As far as the proposed valet, have there any been discussion with Dan Nuzzo and off-street parking with the application for that valet?
Guy Busa with Howard Hudson. There's been no conversations with Dan yet at this point. We need the hotel operator to, or the vendor, the valet vendor to take care of that at that
Well, it's going to be no
point.
hotel because
Yeah.
the vendor is hired by the hotel. The
Okay.
license will go to the hotel.
Okay,
And the thing is, I don't want to think that through approval through this process, that right together is, or the TAPA,
correct.
is approved. It has to be, it's a separate application process that needs to be through that off-street parking division.
Yes.
So,
Okay,
that be
we'll,
known.
we'll start that. Thank you.
Other questions or comments on the specific repair plan? Mayor Tutt?
Good.
Sean is still out in the hall, but great. Members of the public? All right, I'll entertain a motion on this item.
I make a motion to approve the joint petition by CBPA, Chain Forge LLC, and the Boston Planning and Development Agency for the making of specific repairs within the following ways in Charlestown, consisting of curb, sidewalk, pedestrian ramp reconstruction, as well as new and relocated, especially pavement, street trees, irrigation, infrastructure, and driveway curb cuts. All is read into the record by the chair, and as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Specific Repairs Plan, First Avenue, 9th Street, 13th Street, Charlestown, 2 sheets dated June 7th, 2018.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Our next item is on a joint petition by CVPA Chain Forge LLC and the Boston Planning and Development Agency for the granting of a projection license for the installation of a canopy over a portion of the sidewalk within First Avenue in Charlestown, located on its northwesterly side at address number 105, generally between 9th Street and 13th Street. This was new business on August 23rd, 2018, and had its first public hearing on September 6th, 2018. This is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, License Plan, First Avenue, Public Street, Charlestown, 1 sheet dated May 23rd, 2018.
Fred Keeler from H.W. Moore Associates Civil Engineers. The plan on the easel here depicts the canopy that we're proposing. That canopy will be located at the main entrance of the hotel off of First Avenue, which is in this location. It'll project about 3 feet into the public way. It'll be heat traced. It'll have 12-inch lettered signage facing First Avenue to identify the hotel address.
Where does it drain out to?
I'm sorry.
The downspout off the canopy, where does that drain out to?
That would tie into the 12-inch drain that we're running along underneath the sidewalk.
Are there any lighting on the awning?
I believe it is. It doesn't indicate any lighting on the drawing. What's that? Yeah, just with building lights, not internally lit.
Sorry.
It's not internally lit. It'll just be illuminated by the building lights.
Other questions or comments? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right. I'll entertain a motion on the protection license.
Make a motion to approve a joint petition by CVPA Chain Forge LLC and the Boston Planning and Development Agency for the granting of a projection license, as read into the record by the chair and is shown in a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, License Plan, First Avenue, Public Street, Charlestown, one sheet dated May 23rd, 2018.
Second.
All in favor? So moved. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to our public hearing. Our first item is on a petition by Extenet Systems for a grant of location with lead company status and no participant to install a new telecommunication conduit with city shadow within the following public ways in Boston proper: Arlington Street, generally between Newbury Street and Comm Ave; Boylston Street, northeast of Dartmouth Street, northeast of Exeter Street; Dartmouth Street, generally between Boylston Street and Newbury Street; Exeter Street, generally between Boylston Street and Newbury Street. This was new business on September 6th, 2018, and this is as shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, Grant of Location Plan, Extenet Systems, Back Bay Expansion, 3 sheets dated August 2018. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners. For the record, Ricardo Souza from Prince Beltai here on behalf of the petitioner, Extenet Systems. To my left is John Morrison from UC Synergetics. And then to his left is Arthur Pino, who's Senior Implementation Manager for Extenet Systems. And this is a continued effort by Extenet to extend our wireless DAS network utilizing our license agreement with the City of Boston and the existing streetlights. The petition itself involves 4 digs, all of which we're going to be utilizing micro-trenching, no traditional digs, in order to minimize the impact on the city and on the streets itself. All 4 of the nodes themselves were approved both by NAB and also the Back Bay Architectural Commission, and we received a certificate of appropriateness for the design. And the designs are also consistent with the Exhibit X to our license agreement with the City of Boston as well. And we're amenable to any questions that you may have.
Questions or comments? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right. I'll entertain a motion on the grant of location.
Make a motion on the petition by Extenet Systems for a grant of location on Arlington Street, Boylston Street, Dartmouth Street, and Exeter Street, as read into the record by the chair, and is shown on a set of plans entitled City of Boston Public Works Department, Engineering Division, grant of location plan, Extenet Systems, Back Bay Expansion, 3 sheets dated August 2018. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.
Very good. Thank you,
So
Mr.
much.
Chairman. Thank you, Commissioners.
Moving on to new business. Our first item is 55 East Service Road, Autumn Lane, South Boston, pedestrian easement, specific repairs, earth retention license on a set of joint petitions by Seaport L4 Title Holder LLC and the Seaport Square Development Company LLC.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. I'm Peter Kohansky from Goldstein Stores. I'm here on behalf of Seaport Block L4 Title Holder LLC, which is the owner of Block L4 of the Seaport Square project, as well as Seaport Square Development Company, which is the master developer of the Seaport Square project. I'm here with Amy Prange from WS Development, John Schmidt from Niche Engineering, Heather Scranton from Haley and Aldrich, and Guy Busa from Howard Stein Hudson is here as well. So the first thing we want to mention, since we put this petition in, we've heard from ISD that our address for the property is going to be 50 East Service Road, not 55. So as we go forward with notices. By now, Seaport Square blocks have been before you a number of times, the previous development blocks. This application is for block L4. It is along East Service Road, just south of block L2, which is the office building that is nearing completion or at completion. Block L4 is a really exciting project for the city. It's an office tower. Amazon will be the sole office tenant. And then there are 2 floors. The first and second floors are retail and restaurant uses. The project is also delivering terrific public realm improvements, Harbor Square Park. They are in the middle of the L block. I will turn it over to Amy in a minute. She'll tell you a little bit more about the details of the project. This application is seeking approval of 4 actions. Specific repairs in East Service Road, a pedestrian easement along East Service Road to create the proper width of sidewalk for the project. We are proposing design changes to Autumn Lane, which is a private way that was previously laid out along with the L1 and L2 blocks just north of Autumn Lane. And we're also asking for approval of an earth retention system within East Service Road, which will be installed along both L4 and continuing along the future block L6 project. That project will have a subsurface garage that will connect to the L4 garage. We're asking to install that system now so that it's in place for that future construction. So with that, I'll turn it over to Amy and she can go through more detail.
So this plan has a red dash line that shows the extent of our limit of work for this project. You'll notice that the red dash line extends further in than the tower footprint. We'll have 1 garage, 2 levels that connects all 4 of these buildings at the end of the day, and we're extending it to include the central green, which is part of Harbor Square Park, and Harbor Way, so we can build approximately 3/4 of an acre of public realm with this project. This is a public realm plan that shows, again, the extent of what we're doing on Harbor Way, which will have it's a private pedestrian way. There'll be a wooden boardwalk, an alley of trees, a large central green. And as part of the approvals of this building, we have an interior passageway that cuts through the block that we're calling the Paseo. That'll have retail opening on both sides. That'll connect you directly to East Service Road and Block M and beyond into the seaport if you're coming through Harbor Way. And we brought 2 renderings of the building just to show you what it's going to look like. This is a view looking south on East Service Road with 121 Seaport on your right, looking at the northeast corner of the building. And we have another view looking from Harbor Square Park towards the northeast, and the entrance to the Paseo on that side of the building. So I'll turn it over to John Schmidt to get into the actions.
Maybe that view. Do you have a view of where the Paseo meets East Service Road?
Yeah, on the second sheet.
Is that from out of sequence? Right there.
Yeah.
And what type of pedestrian treatment's going to be there?
Part of specific repair, we're going to do a bump out here, and we're going to mirror it on the side of Autumn Lane. But the M block also had the same thing here, so the idea is that we're going to do this across here.
So you think you're going to do that?
That's the plan.
I'm asking you, you're the engineer. You think you're actually going to do that?
I think majority will. I think some won't. Like any intersection.
John, if I can do Commissioner his first concern, so I'm going to, there's a method of the madness in the questions I'm going to ask you. East Service Road, is it a one-way or a two-way street?
It's one way.
Thank
One
you.
way? It's a one-way street.
It's a one-way,
It's a one-way street, okay.
2 lanes, one way coming off the highway system.
That's the concern. Okay, so you have, and just for the record, what is the major off-ramps that are feeding East Service Road?
90 and 93. And
Right.
at Block M across the street,
I'm sorry?
at Block M across the
No.
street,
Just let's build this thing up correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, basically, I want all parties to understand the functionality of East Service Road as it receives majority of the traffic that pumps out of the I-90/I-93 system. When you say South Boston exit, that's where you get off, right?
Yep,
And
exit
this is the
25.
street that feeds a majority of the people that are in the South Boston.
So
This-
if I could expand on this, on the M block here, this is a garage entrance here. So pedestrians won't, most likely pedestrians will not be crossing into a garage entrance or loading dock.
John, I just want in the context to understand all the road surface reductions that are being proposed to be able to facilitate adequate movement of vehicles when we have snow emergencies, including snow piles. Okay, I can see a scenario where there is not going to be enough capacity with the way how this roadway is being laid out with the bump outs that might have a shock wave that goes into the tunnel, i.e. the I-90/93 tunnel. And John, I would like you to make some comments as to your perception or your assessment as to how the street widths are playing out, keeping in mind that this would be the main road, in my humble opinion, that feeds in East Service Road. The road street name doesn't signify the importance of this link.
Okay.
So your thoughts on that?
I would like, my thoughts on that is I haven't thought about it in that level of detail that you're asking me, so I would like to reserve the right to be prepared to speak to it next time instead of trying to come up with a reason that doesn't hold water.
Good, fine. Okay, just be mindful of it
Yeah.
because even today with all the construction that is going on,
Sure.
I
Yeah.
experience that movement.
Yep.
Okay, with the lane widths that are there.
Right, so I will work with Howard Stein Hudson and the project team to make sure that we have a clear, concise answer at the public
Because
hearing.
as much as we're experiencing drama of leaving South Boston, I don't think we want to add to the drama of getting into South Boston.
Absolutely.
So, Guy Busa again with Howard Stein Hudson. So on East Service, the bump outs on the L4 side are actually taking parking away, not a travel lane. The bump out on the M block side protects an extra lane as you approach the Seaport Boulevard intersection. So, and before that, on the M block side, there's parking. So East Service has 2 through lanes at all times through the through this area from Congress, where I-90 and I-93 dump into it, to East Service, to Seaport Boulevard. But by the time you get up to Seaport Boulevard from Autumn Lane north, there's an extra travel lane for turning movements. And that was worked out at length during the M block process. And we can further elaborate on that prior to the hearing.
So my concern is as follows. Parking lanes are there for parking
Correct.
purposes.
Correct.
But under snow emergencies, those parking lanes are, the parking aspect is removed.
Correct.
That is where you shovel the snow. Okay? Cars gone, snow builds up. Now when you have a bump out at the intersection, that snow drift, snow pile ends up on a travel lane. Now you have lane restrictions. So that is the concern that the
Understood.
city may have.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that East Service Road is the main road that gets into this whole zone.
Correct.
Okay? So it is the bump outs, and I don't think we can push the snow onto the bump outs because that's where the pedestrian ramps are supposed to be. So it puts us into an awkward position.
The bump outs also provide for a hubway station and other street furniture pieces. So, I mean, you know,
balance all of this stuff so that the
that's what,
developers are
correct.
mindful of what the mitigating results are going to be. I don't want to get into a so-called
Yeah.
situation, but we continue to hear concerns about being able to get in and get out of South Boston.
Yes, thank you.
That's going to be important for the tenants that are going to reside there, because we're hearing more and more from the tenants, very unhappy with the traffic situation in the area.
Okay. Yeah, we were going to get into the actions now, so I'll turn it over to John Schmidt.
So the first application before you is the supportive excavation. The building itself will have a slurry wall that's built within the property, and there'll be tiebacks that will project to the curb line on the opposite side. And they start approximately 10 feet below grade. They go under the utilities. And then outside of that, what is a little unusual is outside the slurry wall, we have soldier pile and lagging, which falls in the middle of the sidewalk. And the purpose of that is to support an AT&T duct bank that runs along the property line. So in order to us to build our foundation, we have to relocate the AT&T duct bank. We want to do that with soldier pile and lagging.
Which duct bank was that?
AT&T.
AT&T.
Yeah.
John, note that. Thank you. All right.
So we need to support the AT&T duct bank with soldier pile and lagging. We have a slurry wall with tiebacks that run from Autumn Lane to Congress Street. And at the project completion, the soldier pile and lagging will be cut to be 6 feet below the sidewalk as is standard practice.
Just one clarification, we actually hope to support the duct bank in place with this system. We're asking to put it in all the way from Autumn Lane to Congress Street and essentially calling it Phase 1, Phase 2. Phase 1 would be for the L4 project, and then once the L4 project is complete, we would remove it 6 feet below grade. L6 does not have a start date, but we know that it will also impact L6, so we're asking to do the whole length, and then we'll restore the public sidewalk in Phase 2 immediately, because we won't need to do any construction there. But we separated it Phase 1, Phase 2, mostly for the sidewalk deposit, and after a meeting that we had with Amy Cording and Todd Liming discussing what we'd be proposing today.
Amy, who is going to clean up East Service Street between Congress and Seaboard Boulevard once they're all done? The road is a mess right now. It became a mess because of all of this wonderful work that is going to come.
We own reconstruction. We own reconstruction, and it's actually part of a larger
So you will clean up
agreement with the state, yeah.
From Congress to?
Yeah.
Can you finish the sentence? From
Seaport
Congress.
Boulevard, yeah.
You're doing Seaport Boulevard right now, correct?
I guess Congress to Autumn, because I think.
No,
right
now you're
WS
presently
is-
working on Seaport Boulevard now.
Oh, yes, sorry.
That's a nice job you did, by the way, you did out there.
Thank you.
The paving came out excellent. But getting back to the support in place for the AT&T duct bank, how do you do that with the slurry walls and the pre-trenching and?
Yeah, so we started communications with AT&T. They're okay with the concept. Skanska actually did it when they built 121 Seaport, Block L2, a couple years ago, so we're kind of moving forward with that approach. And as we select our SOE subcontractor this fall, we'll have a series of discussions with AT&T.
So is this reflective in the construction management plan?
Yes.
So I don't see any specific detail in the CMP for that.
I think it might be the first phase. I can circle back and confirm, but I'm pretty sure it's part of the CMP.
Just interested in seeing
Yeah.
how that works.
Yep.
Sorry. Please, Amy. I apologize for what I just said. Amy, one of the concerns we have are as follows. Extremely appreciative of the fact that, WS team is resurfacing or rebuilding these streets. Truly appreciative. It's part of mitigation, but we still appreciate that. What could be extremely problematic is if telecommunication companies who haven't thought things through go to cut these things out.
Amy did a lot of work on Seaport Boulevard to make sure that everything
Okay,
was.
so likewise, even on East
It
Service,
was not that easy, believe me. That was a last minute thing with these telecommunications that I
Okay.
finally had to send an email out saying, this is your last chance. You're not in, you're out.
because
Yeah, and Mark had tried a while before that and just had gotten.
Laura's bringing up a very valid point.
so my concern is, Yanni, I truly appreciate your investments, but I would hate to see your investment fall short of the mark if some interesting person wants to come and cut that street up. Because normally we have a 5-year moratorium, we may hold that thing to a 10-year moratorium. So I just don't know what is the process for us to reach out to the telecommunications companies to get their conduits in now before it comes time for you to resurface. And I don't know who can take the lead on it, Amy.
But I mean, we tried a couple of different approaches and I think that Ed eventually got the
But it
best
was
reaction.
magnetic,
Yeah,
brilliant.
but Mark had said set out several coordination conflicts and like knowing exactly what
Okay.
you need to do.
And we are not going to even tolerate micro trenching, SIP, I mean,
Obviously, we've had a lot of conversations about telecom utility and other things like that. Is this the sort of location that would lend itself to
Seaport
that?
Boulevard would have been the perfect location.
I realize we were.
but we lost that one.
But we were too late in the,
But
I think
Amy,
that's
this is a main drag thing.
But however, we can figure out a way to protect the asset that you guys are building and ensure that that we actually can put provide good telecom services in this area without it destroying the road over time is obviously of mutual interest. So you can just connect and interact with Amy on that.
Yes.
Other things on the earth retention?
You guys have my comments emailed, right?
Yes, and I think we have responded, but we will confirm that.
So just to identify, one of the areas during phase one, when basically, actually it's phase two, with the earth retention, putting in the slurry walls, there's a little bit of an overlap with the project across the street. And again, I need to maintain 2 lanes off that off-ramp. So that's something that we, Mr. Busa, you and your folks need to come in. We need to discuss how we can phase that so we maintain that.
See, actually, there, yeah, M1 over.
Yes.
Across here.
That's correct. They will not be ready to deliver that cross-section, I think, for maybe a month prior. Let's have the conversation.
Moving on to the specific repairs on East Service Road. As discussed, we are proposing a bump out at Autumn Lane at East Service Road that will mirror the bump out that M Block constructed, and that will provide a great crosswalk area for pedestrians. We are proposing a 5-foot wide pervious paver, so it's constructed in to the compliance with the complete street guidelines. Presently we have a 7-foot public concrete sidewalk. We are providing a pedestrian easement to make that 8 feet wide of public sidewalk. But actually, the concrete extends to the building face, so it's about a 10-foot wide sidewalk through that area. Within the furnishing zone, we will have a bike share program. We will have trash barrels. We will have benches, street lights, and street trees. So it'll be a very lively street edge. That's about the extent of it. Understanding your concerns today about lane widths and things like that. When we come back to the public hearing, we'll have a diagram that clearly describes what the lane widths are, and so everyone's clear.
I think it's not a concern about lane widths, it's a concern about how do we actually manage during sort of our heaviest snowstorms.
Yep.
How do we make sure that this actually works for both vehicles going through and pedestrians who are going across? So
Okay.
that's more than.
If I'm permitted to say, Chief, Yanni, we truly appreciate, I can't repeat that thing, appreciate what you continue to do to liven this area. But the density of pedestrian traffic and vehicle traffic might be one of the highest in here. So we need your help as a abutter shoveling the snow off the sidewalk and managing it traditional ways is going to be short of the mark. Our standard practice in shoveling the snow off the road is we push it to the side. We don't take the snow and send it somewhere else. We may need your help to manage that snow movement better than what it is being done. Otherwise, your clients and those who are living in the area are going to be compromised. And I can see a very awkward situation coming where the sidewalks is shoveling the snow onto these reduced lane widths. Our snow plows are pushing it, and then we have a bad situation. So need your help to get rid of the snow.
I'll just speak for Yanni and Amy for a second. Nobody shares those incentives more than WS. They care very much about the pedestrian realm. It's the whole concept for Seaport Square. It's a super important tenant. It's going to be in the building, so absolutely 100% on board and helping
That you
the
will
city
help
manage
us
that.
to make the snow disappear, not just to the side.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Please. Oh, yeah.
Just terribly sorry. Yanni Sidis with WS Development for the applicant. We appreciate the concern very much. And while typically this type of back and forth maybe would conclude at the public hearing phase, you have our commitment, the building owner's commitment, that if the city, in clearing snow from the travel lanes, it ends up in the parking lane, we will remove that snow. Just as we will remove every inch of snow, every quarter inch of snow from the sidewalk along the building face. There's no question that's what it takes to run a Class A plus building, and we're happy to make that commitment proactively. Hopefully,
Thank you.
Thank you
So much for those thoughts.
A small question on the trash. Are we doing the trash pickup, or are you guys doing the trash pickup? How is that working? Private, okay.
So if I may move to Autumn Lane?
Sorry, one other quick thing. Do you guys consider recycling as a component of that as well? I don't know if you do combine trash and recycling.
Yep.
Just getting back to the streetscape, I did send an email out relative to some of the proposed parking. I have not received a response yet, so I'd like to get that at some point. The liveliness of the sidewalk area, can I expect a 12.5-foot multicolor moose or something? I don't know.
Not at this location.
Not this one, all right. That's good to know.
Yeah, so the comment on the tap about the micro mobility hub, and that was a direct result of the Seaport Square Article 80 notice project chain process. So, I mean, that will be going in a few years' time. So I think we can work out the signage along that stretch. We were hoping to leave it available for, car share and shuttles and no parking, but I think we can continue to work on that with you.
Okay, I appreciate that.
So now I'd like to speak to Autumn Lane. Now, Autumn Lane is a private way that was laid out, approved by this commission, and constructed and completed within the last year or so. What we're proposing now is to make some surface modifications to Autumn Lane. And the biggest one is probably a raised crosswalk here. And that is...
John, give me a second. Do you own Autumn Lane on both sides?
Yes, yeah.
But you are the petitioner on both sides?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Now, you may recall, Autumn Lane is actually constructed over the garage of both 101 Seaport and 121 Seaport. So the garage goes up, and then we have several feet to the surface of Autumn Lane. And at the edge of Autumn Lane, at the curb line, then we have the Boston Water and Sewer 10-foot wide easement and sewer line that was reviewed and approved by the commission in the past couple of years. So that sewer line is constructed, and the intent of that will be under the sidewalk as been originally approved by the commission. But it was before your time, so you're not familiar with the backstory on that. So what we have here is Harbor Square, as Amy indicated before, is very pedestrian friendly, and we anticipate pedestrians will be walking through here. In order to get them across Autumn Lane and out to Seaport Boulevard, we'd like a raised crosswalk here within the private way. In addition to raising the crosswalk, we're going to do some other improvements. We're going to replace the concrete. We're going to add, improve the landscaping, just kind of make it a little bit nicer than was originally intended.
The street lighting, John, will continue to be?
Yes, the street lighting will remain.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not.
Continue to be complementary to the area's lighting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's really the extent of the Autumn Lane improvements, and we wanted to get the commission's blessing on that, but we weren't quite sure how to package it because it's a private way.
So, I mean, a lot of it is just to show us what's going to be out there when we go out there, and other than the sewer and some of the other stuff, we don't, this is just for
So, John, the only thought I would like to share with you, your average person who is going to go over this race thing is not going to understand, may not understand if it is public or private.
Correct.
So you still need to manage a consistent set of expectations and design guidelines where if we were to do something of that nature on a city-owned street,
right,
that there is not a huge departure in the standards that are being used.
Understood.
Okay?
Understood.
So this way, whether it is there or on Congress Street, you will still use good engineering, obviously, principles, and manage the expectations so that it doesn't put the city into an awkward spot later by saying, by someone saying, hey, why don't you do the same thing which you did over there?
Okay.
And this is a private way open to public travel?
Correct. Yes. Correct.
Just in the signage package, just make sure when you develop the street name sign, it has the private way on it. We've had similar issues in the Seaport, where they install piers.
And our final petition goes back to East Service Road, where we're asking for pedestrian easement to provide 8 foot wide of public access
On your property, right?
on our property. Yeah.
Anything else?
That's it for today.
Any other questions or comments on these set of proposals? Maybe your top members of the public. All right. See you guys back here in 2 weeks on October 4th.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Our next item of new business is Buzzard Street, Loon Road, West Roxbury, layout approvals on a set of joint petitions by CAD Builders LLC and SM LaRusso and Sons Inc.
Good morning, Chief Osgood, members of the commission. Chris Tracy from O'Neill & Associates in Boston. To my left is David Johnson and Dick Morris of Norwood Engineering. Here on behalf of our client, Anthony Delizia and CAD Builders. The proposal is for a subdivision of housing in West Roxbury. The proposal is to do 29 single-family homes built on 2 private ways, built to city standards with the infrastructure associated with it. We plan on establishing a homeowners association once complete. In the future, that homeowners association could petition the city to convert it to public way. We'll build it to that standard, but that is the current.
These cannot become public ways because they have it.
Okay. The plan is to build them as private ways. We'll say that, okay?
No.
Open to public travel.
Public travel without a clear understanding that the homeowners that are going to be part of a homeowners association recognize the fact that it is to be remained as a private way.
Okay. It's important to remember too that as we're going through this process, every street that feeds into it is a private way as well.
That's fine.
So obviously we've made that known.
It's just that 30 years from now, we just want to recognize the fact that these homeowners who are buying into this area recognize it can never be converted to a public way.
And that's totally fine with our development team as well. So it's 75,000 square feet of development. The plan is for the layout to be 40 feet across. Travelway is 28 feet. Sidewalks are 6 feet with slope transition curbing. Plan is to do trees in the front yard.
Sorry, why is it 28 versus 26 and 2/7?
Boston Fire consulted the length and the width of the street, and that's what they had told us.
Yeah, it's all fire.
So we are putting street lights, yes?
The client is under the impression, yes, that he will be doing
You have
street lights.
to. Okay. And even though this is still a private way, the resulting sidewalk width minus the street light and its offset still needs to be adequate. So someone in the plans, Amy, I'm not in the plans properly, what is the net resulting sidewalk width for a person in a wheelchair to go?
True clear path of travel along the sidewalk.
Dick, do you
It's, right now, we have a 6-foot sidewalk.
Yeah. So half a foot is gone for the edge stone. So
Right.
now you have 5.5 feet.
Right.
Then you have a foot offset from that 5.5 feet to the street light.
Right.
So you have to 4.5 feet. So when you capture the base, you have about 4 feet left. Make sure that the width has been placed by Sarah.
Yeah, we'll get that information.
Just go through the.
Right.
It's not a big deal. It's just go through the.
Now, one thing that we, on Willett and Thrush, there are no streetlights there right now, leading up to our
There are
Willett.
many challenges in the past of this wonderful city which we work in that could be problematic. We just don't want to repeat some of the challenges of the past.
Okay.
Okay? That's as best as I can say.
Okay, and fire had said yes to the truck turning radius as long as we restrict parking on one side with signage, so that is the plan. As far as the plan, we were approved by the BPDA in June, hope to go to ISD and the Zoning Board of Appeals after being granted a street name and therefore the ability to get addresses, which we cannot do now. We had originally proposed the names Buzzard Street and Loon Road. We have talked to Todd Liming, and the ownership would like to change that to Sterling Street and Toucan Road, which are available. The whole impetus was naming them after a bird. This whole street network is all named after birds, so that was the impetus behind that.
Sterling or Starling?
Starling, yes. And I think that's it for my introduction. If we have anything else to add from our engineers?
Yeah, I'm a little bit this issue of ADA minimums, take that a little bit seriously, because even though this street, we are making it sure that it doesn't become a public street, a future homeowner under the Americans with Disabilities Act, if they are of the opinion that they cannot go in a wheelchair down that path, they could create problems for you, which means you will have to rebuild the street or take down your houses, the sidewalk may have to expand. So just because it's a private way doesn't exclude your need to abide by these federal and state regulations.
Right, like right now we're talking to Boston Water Sewer about setting the hydrant at the back of the sidewalk so it's not in the sidewalk to eliminate that area, then we'll be fine there. I don't think we'll have an issue with the street signs, but the light poles could be an issue. We have to address that.
Just check with the PICP and they will give you guidance on how to manage it.
All right.
Okay? Because 90% of our 40-foot right-of-ways in the city that are current, we have 7-foot sidewalks with a 26-foot roadway surface, which is more than adequate for a fire truck to go. Okay? The reason why here the fire department may have said you need 28 feet is unless you are instituting parking on one side on 8 feet plus the 20 feet, that's what brings it to 28 feet. So for the luxury of parking on one side and substandard sidewalk widths on the other side,
right?
Okay, sidewalks win. Okay, just because it's a private way, parking is not a right.
So Willard Street, is that a private way also?
Yes.
It is.
And those streets, I don't think have dedicated, well, I'm not sure. Chris, do those streets have dedicated parking? You know, the other bird streets in that area?
I think there's no restriction on
Exactly, no restriction. So here you are imposing the restrictions. Are the restrictions translated to the deed of each property? Be careful, don't go. I'm just trying to give you as much guidance I can with 5 years of experience. Okay.
These layout plans will be updated to call out parking prohibition on one side or the other.
Yeah, because Todd, what we don't want is some unsuspecting homeowner thinks that, oh, I bought this house private way and I have rights to that parking spot. That could make things awkward.
And these should be signed, these parking restrictions.
Okay. So it is an option which the homeowners have. It's a shared space.
Okay.
So just manage that thing. Private way laws are a little bit funky in our fair state.
So obviously this is going to be private way, Willard Street coming onto the public way on Washington Street. Obviously, I live in the neighborhood, you do, relative to construction management. What's the thinking there? What's the outreach? What are we doing?
As you know, we went through a robust process through the BPDA, and we actually got pretty good feedback on how the construction management is going to be done, because we're going to use the site to our advantage. Where it's so big, he can do a lot of staging right on site, build it in phases, ballparking about a 2-year construction period, hopefully 2 years, probably a little bit longer, but the community was actually okay with that. He had agreed to hire a street sweeper and to do whatever he can to mitigate dust and noise in the community.
Right. As it comes out on Washington Street, making sure we're good housekeepers there.
Yeah.
Taking care of the right of way.
As far as how we access via the trucks, we told the community we'd come back and meet with them. We really hadn't got that far down the road.
Right. That's going to be important because.
Yes, you're right. But they were happy that we could at least stage a lot of the bigger trucks and equipment on site.
Okay.
Other questions or comments on this?
I'm sorry. Maybe on Root Road, the fire department and all parties are okay with the way how the turnout is? Like, it's not a hammerhead, it's just.
Yeah, it's based on what they're doing.
So that's why we check that also. And there's no street lights anywhere?
There's not Thrush.
I'm sorry?
There's street lights on Thrush and street lights on Eagle. And
I'm sorry?
are there street lights on Eagle? And
No,
Thrush?
there's no street lights on Eagle. Well, Eagle has street lights, but on Thrush and Willett, the 2 roads that we need to access, there are no street lights on those roads. That road's 28 feet wide too. The travelway's 28 feet on Willard.
Who built those roads?
Who built them?
If you don't
Kent.
know,
It was Kent back in like it was 2007, something like that.
Not your client. Not yet.
Not yet.
it's highly unusual for private ways to get approved because what we don't have is a follow-up process to find out whether street lights were installed or not. Okay? When this commission approves a roadway, including drainage, sidewalks, curbs, roads, lighting is important. But because it's a private way, we don't have the authority to come back and ask, did you actually do it? Okay?
I was involved with that section of Willard and Thrush, and at the time, we weren't asked to do that. That was
Which
back
year
when
was
John
it, sir?
Sheehan and was still here.
Which year was that?
It was between 2004, we started the plans in 2007.
Amy, I would be.
Oh, was it? Well, maybe it was before that then.
No, it has to be before that.
Because
know
I
since-
dealt with John Sheehan when I did that.
Okay, so Mr. Shane has been with us for some time and it could go back as late as 1981. So I'm fairly certain it could be, so let's, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
So
no,
that's
I know.
not what is discussed over here. You are responsible for
Okay.
lighting because you are selling a house in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. People do expect lighting to be there.
Well, we'll,
Okay?
yeah.
And I think ISC will work the rest of this equation as to how come there's no lights on another private street that received approval from this commission.
Other questions or comments? Name your time. Members of the public. We'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
October 4th. Until then.
Thank you.
Our next item of new business is PBD Square, Dorchester Avenue, Dorchester, specific repairs on a petition by Greater Ashmont Main Streets.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Jen Carté. I'm the Executive Director of Greater Ashmont Main Street, one of the 20 Boston Main Streets under contract with the City for Economic Revitalization. With me today are Jessica Brown from Crowley Cottrell and Brandon Green from Paragon Landscape, the design and Graham, not Green, I apologize, the design and landscape architect team that has worked on these plans for us. I'd like to not waste your time, but take just a couple of moments to explain the background of how this project came to be, if I may. Greater Ashmont Main Street regularly hosts community visioning sessions and was significantly involved in the redesign and reconfiguration of this intersection in Peabody Square, Dorchester, Talbot, and Ashmont approximately 10 years ago. At that time, 2 plazas, Peabody Square East and West, were created out of the BTD streetscape, and plans were made for their ongoing maintenance. There is a certain amount of landscaping. At the time, I'm told, my tenure in the role is 3 years, but through Pat Hoey at BTD and others who worked on the project, there were hopes for street furniture at the time, signage, and other sorts of streetscape amenities that were not in the budget back then. Further, over the decades since, some of the plantings have failed. We've also learned some lessons from some of the permeable areas not being quite so permeable. And approximately 18 months ago, in a community visioning session attended by 70 residents, we made a plan to do a revitalization project of Peabody Square as an organizational goal for the Main Street. We had pro bono design assistance that got us to 30% design, is that about right? By COG Design, pro bono design firm that helped us in that visioning session. And then from there, we were working on it in bits and pieces, looking for the funding to make it happen. Immediately after that, Parks, under contract with Parterre in Cambridge, renovated the bioswale. There's a rain garden in this project, so that renovation was done under contract from the city. Subsequently, Parks Commissioner Cook donated these 4-foot wide concrete planters to the effort, which came out of the bid district in Downtown Crossing. They were surplus from there, and Public Works was kind enough in a late night delivery shift to move them in. We got donated soil. We've been planting them ever since. We do have an ongoing mitigation budget from the Caruth Building, one of Trinity Financial's TOD developments in the area, that currently holds about $40,000 and receives funds that vary year to year based on profits of the affordable units, but approximating about $8,000 a year. We knew that wasn't going to be enough to tackle the project in whole, but we do use those funds for ongoing landscape work, replacement of capital things there, and in the garden beds that we're responsible for on the MBTA Plaza. Last November, we were given the opportunity through the Boston Main Streets Foundation to work with Patronicity, a crowdfunding campaign, to push out the possibility of actually funding the rest of this project in full. Over the course of a 60-day crowdfunding campaign, with the help of 125 individual donors and about 15 institutional sponsors, we raised $26,430 from the community. It was matched $25,000 from Mass Development, and another $25,000 from a combination of the Boston Main Streets Foundation, Trinity Financial, Peregrine Group, and the Martin Richard Foundation. So we have in hand, with a small holdback of like 10% to substantial completion, approximately $96,430 to move forward with this project and have ongoing maintenance for it. To do so, we engaged Paragon, and we put out an RFP to which we received responses, which led to the engagement of Paragon and Crowley Cottrell, and the plans that you see before you. I'm happy to answer specific questions about the plans and ongoing maintenance. The only other aspect that isn't with us that was taken off of our original plans, the SUFA sign that's in front of you is incorporated into this, but I understand they're separately permitted with you, so they're just designated here without it being our project.
We had them put the SUFA sign, we already approved that as location on the plans.
2 questions.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely excited about what you are doing. I do remember when we rebuilt Public Works, when we rebuilt this intersection some years back. The public art, the sleeping moon, or...
That's on the MBTA Plaza?
So it's not...
That's correct.
My bad. Second.
We do have the clock, sir. We have the brown
so
Ingersoll.
The brown...
Ingersoll clock is in the East Plaza.
So the folks at the Brown Fund know what you are doing, or at least you have communicated with them?
We have not, the design does not impact it whatsoever. We are changing the grass around it, but not the clock or the clock enclosed.
Just let them know.
Absolutely, I will.
Let them know, because
At
I
least
don't...
one member of the committee is aware.
He's on the committee.
And we did consult directly with Roseanne Foley, both in her formal and informal roles.
Yeah, because she was there before, now she's inside.
Yes.
City Hall. Okay, last one. There's a, so you have a triangular spot and the one on the left-hand side of Talbot.
Yes.
There was a driveway which we kept feeding the restaurant, not feeding. There's a restaurant access driveway which was problematic from day one with all the bollards getting wet. So how is that driveway being managed here?
So where you see the lightly shaded circles, the 4 circles that are lightly shaded on the left hand, that is where we currently have the giant planters from Parks, and they have been in place for 17 months or so? Not quite a year and a half. They have won every time they've been hit by a car. What we have found, and we have eliminated, it had gotten so bad, sir, that people were cutting the light at Talbot Ave by driving over the plaza.
I know,
Okay.
Trust me,
yeah.
no, that was bad.
So the presence of these giant planters has really helped.
Okay, great.
But if you look, the reason we are proposing moving them and moving one from the corner that was like an extra one up here to their new orientation, do you see the shift from the light shaded to the dark shaded? That now makes the driveway straight. What happens is on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights, people park attached to the planters now, which then blocks the driveway to the restaurant. The dry set resetting, which is the pink and gray here, are you better able to explain it? Could you please?
I'm sorry, I'm taking way too much time. I think the punchline is, does the restaurant buy into the...
Yes, he's on my board. Well, he was on my board and he's fully on this.
Thank you, because, thank you.
Yes. We're resetting the curb to try and make people going the wrong way less, not the curb, the pavers that lead to the curb, because currently the lines lead them to where that big belly trash can was that got killed in 2 weeks.
It was a maintenance nightmare from the first day we installed it.
I have been aware of it solidly for 3 years and longer than that as a resident.
Great, so you understand our pain.
I have put up hand-laminated signs begging people to not park on the plaza.
Thank you so much.
One question we have, I'm sorry, please, are there others?
One quick question. Jen, obviously I know a little bit about the irrigation challenges at this particular location. We're taking two places that currently have lawn and replacing it with concrete, is that right?
With these, but in a larger format, 2x2. These pavers, dry set, yes.
Okay. And that's largely because of the experience which we've collectively had in sort of maintaining the lawn, maintaining some of the green infrastructure.
We have tried, at least in square footage, to replace that much green space between the planters and the expanded plantings around it, and there is the addition of one sycamore tree.
Oh, all right. So there's sort of a net sort of...
That was our goal.
Sorry, go ahead with your question.
It has been this is not a normal process for a Main Street organization, and we have had great support from Neighborhood Services and Boston Main Streets in getting through it with you, and Todd has been very elucidating. It is not clear to us if after the hearing 2 weeks from now, should that hearing conclude matters, if then we can start. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Just when you start, the contractor needs to have a traffic management plan, get permitted through the Public Works and Transportation Department, so be aware of that.
But that's well within your experience.
Yes, and you get...
You're bonded, sir, with the Public Works Department to pull permits?
I'll find resources that are bonded with the Public Works Department.
Very important.
Just connect with Amy and Todd, they can walk you through that process.
Yes.
They are a large firm with significant contracts, and they've worked in Boston before.
And you can take a head start.
I'm sorry?
You can take a head start in securing what Commissioner Hesford asked for. So this way, come 12 o'clock on October 4th, get going.
Yeah, we look to start the following Monday if all goes well. Oh, and we're continuing the red line focus of Greater Ashmont Main Street and the rebranding and the materials for the furnishing. Furnishings are this. We do expect 148 new households before the end of December in the 2 new transit-oriented development buildings. Because we are expecting that, we are holding the picnic tables, not the game tables, but the installation of the picnic tables to the spring. We don't want them derelict over the rest of the fall, but it's in great anticipation of this burst of households that we're trying to make this public space as welcoming and useful as possible.
Who's going to manage the snow within this park, out
So
areas now?
the Ashmont Grill is responsible for the it's not a sidewalk, but the path along its building. Historically, it's been very much used as a place that snow goes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I know the answers and it has been a challenge. And so what are the ongoing thoughts on it? Because concern is from pedestrian traffic. We create these bump outs and then someone doesn't think through as to how the snow is to be managed in these areas.
So the sidewalk that goes along Talbot Ave and Dot Ave is maintained by the city.
Okay.
It has been.
It has.
And the Ashmont Grill and Mishi Fuels, which are next door, clear a path along the building. We have a maintenance agreement that's in draft process with Todd, that he has some queries to make sure. We have a maintenance agreement that was drafted a decade ago and agreed to verbally by all parties, but it wasn't executed fully. Before this process is done, we will have a fully executed, updated agreement.
That's what
Simon got it right.
Okay, yes, absolutely.
So help us to manage the situation.
We have the volunteer capacity. I have 4 civic associations that each have a Saturday a month that are down there with litter and leaves and such. They make it a social time with coffee for themselves. But we obviously need the structural help, like getting the spigot fixed, which it is now, so, and what have you. Yeah, only 26 months, it worked out.
Other questions or comments? Amy or Todd? Members of the public? All right. See you guys in 2 weeks.
Excellent, thank you.
Our next item of new business is 112 Shaman Ave, Harold Street, Boston proper, specific repairs, projection license, on a set of petitions by DIV Shaman LLC. Rebecca.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission. My name is Rebecca Lee. I'm an attorney with Mintz. To my left is Dante Angelucci, Executive Vice President of the Davis Companies. And to his left is Rick Latini, a civil engineer with Howard Stein Hudson. Associates, the civil engineers for this project. The 112 Shawmut Avenue building is part of a 3-building project that has received BPDA and zoning commission approval. This is the first of the 3 buildings to be constructed. It will be a residential condominium building with approximately 139 residences with a enclosed garage. The feature of this project overall, as you can see on the site plan, is that there are 3 buildings that have been planned in a coordinated fashion, are part of a single plan development area. There are open space connections being made between Shawmut Avenue and Washington Street and also Herald Street South to create connectivity through this part of the South End, which does not have quite the charm of the rest of the South End because it's a former urban renewal area where superblocks were created. So this is in the legacy of going backwards in time and also consistent with the city's policy goal of creating more connections in this part of the South End in other projects in the area. So Dante is going to talk about the project more generally, and also about, Rick is going to talk about the 2 petitions, one for specific repairs on Shawmut Avenue and Herald Street, and the other a entrance canopy application.
Good morning. So in terms of background on the project, I think some of you may have some familiarity with the site. We worked closely with the city and with the community to go through an extensive process with a number of community meetings. We're working in conjunction with the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association of New England, as well as the Boston Chinese Evangelical Church. In addition to the structure that we're building, we're also building a little pocket park in the back and also complying with the requirements for the neighborhood planning, including north to south and east to west connector corridors from a pedestrian standpoint through the site. We are in the process of receiving our financing, and we hope to start the project this fall. We do have one more meeting, we believe, with the South End Landmarks Commission on October 2nd. We've already had 2 advisory meetings, and we think that we have provided direction for them to make a determination on the one issue that was outstanding, which is just essentially the cornerstone of the building. So short of that, but Rick kind of explained the underlying project.
How many units?
I'm sorry, 139 units for us, 300 units roughly for the CCDA, and then 72 units of what's projected for
So
the PCC.
total
is
About
500 plus or minus. And obviously this went through the Article 80 review process. Through that process, Rick, to the best of your recollection or your awareness, let me say it in another way, did Howard Stein Hudson handle the Article 80 review process?
Yes, we did.
So what were the requirements in the TAPA for system improvements? And when I say system improvements, not libraries, but the road infrastructure. Right. Because 500 units is going to put more than a couple of pedestrians and cars into the system. So before we review this stuff.
I don't want to put Guy Booth in the spot, but he might be able to do this one better than me.
We like doing that.
So, Guy Booth, Howard Stein Hudson. Yes,
the reason I'm asking is so that the Commission understands the context through which this project got developed.
So during the Article 80 process, we looked at the entire site, all 3 buildings. This particular, we've developed a TAPA for 112 Shawmut, which should be submitted next week. In terms of the mitigation, during the discussions of the public meetings and the discussions with BPDA and BTD, there was no specific request for mitigation items for contribution to the, well, you're talking the New York streets improvements, I would assume, that area?
Every once in a while, we may not be able to come to all meetings and get all the comments in. Now, Howard Stein Hudson has participated with a significant majority of the Article 80 review projects that has gone through. That's why we have a level of comfort seeing your name attached to the process. So in your best interest, not in your best interest, not just your client's interest, but in the interests of the city, what should be done, because I'm concerned about the fact that this is, you've got 500 units coming up. By the time you're through with it, the construction process itself is going to tear up our sidewalk streets. Right? It is always problematic when you all do the bare minimum of restoring the further damage which is done due to construction versus helping us with managing the space. Think about how the ink block area was done. Okay, there was collective cohesiveness to doing system area improvements, not just to your front door. So that is where I'm coming from. So as much as the fact that we are supposed to give you comments, every once in a while we may not have had the opportunity
Yep.
or the chance.
That is the case with this particular effort. And we will be working with, this is a Bill Conroy project, we'll be working with Bill when we submit the TAPA next week to determine
so
these.
we know each other more than a couple of days. Help us to help you to
Yep.
improve things so that
Yep.
by the time you're done, your front door doesn't look like a piece of crap.
No, understood. No, and our intention is obviously we'll do new sidewalks around the site, and if there's a, resurfacing effort that needs to be done, we're
Please
happy
do.
to. I mean, the challenge obviously we have with this thing is that
stage.
we're working with Stage, and the other thing is we're also working with two nonprofits. So
that is the reason where
No,
you
no,
need
I-
to,
yep,
I mean,
understood.
there's no way hell I'm going to ask.
The issue is just timing
Right.
for us, because like I said, some of these projects may lag significantly. So we, when it happens, the issue, again, that we have as a fund is we have an end of life. We can't have a contingent liability out there for some extended period of time. So we're happy to work with the city to come up with flex a reasonable payment to the city for future repairs to be done in the future. We're happy to have that conversation.
Thank you.
I also did want to point out that one of the advantages of the three groups coming together to plan and zone this area is that each party for its project has committed to a level of streetscape improvements that simply doesn't exist in this part of the South End, so that it begins to feel more warm, less industrial. So there is a cohesive urban design that has been discussed extensively, input from the Parks Department, so street trees, bike racks, sidewalks, a wider bigger sidewalk at the corner of Washington and Herald, which is really a sort of important entranceway into the South End. So all of that is baked in, as well as the privately maintained pedestrian passageways that will be open to the public, but that will be completely privately maintained and provide some of that connectedness.
It's actually not a entrance to the south end, because you can't get into the south end from Washington Street unless you're on the Silver Line. Perfect segue for me. So you mentioned that.
Except that that's not going to be true for very long.
Yeah,
because
so
you're gonna
that's
be able to
right.
make a right.
Exactly. So, how are there planned improvements to Shawmut and Washington, and how does projects like this tie into those planned improvements?
And this gets a little bit back to the conversations with Bill, that there's an interesting thing about how we improve the overall network of streets and not just sort of particular streets.
Yes.
Yes.
Part of that is a two-way Washington concept, part of that is the streetscape improvements, which you guys have both spoken about. I think that's going to be an important part of the continued conversation with Bill.
Yeah.
To make sure the whole
Are
network.
those efforts meshed in with development efforts? Or are they independent of development efforts?
So they are somewhat linked together. So
Okay.
there's been a comprehensive plan around the block.
And did I hear, is there a garage plan as part of this project?
Yes.
And how many parking spots?
110 parking spaces, half are accessible off of Shawmut Ave and half are off of Herald Street.
So it will function like two different
Two
garages?
separate garages, essentially, yeah. they're
So
not two
off
lanes.
Herald and Shawmut?
Yeah, the Harold one can't drive.
It's
into the
important to
shop.
figure out the network flow, because we know that Herald fails. Herald fails at commuting hours
Yep.
quite significantly.
Sure.
And Shawmut goes nowhere. Because it's,
Right.
you get to the next intersection and you're doing a circle,
Sure.
back to Tremont.
Right.
So to introduce more density to this neighborhood is ultimately a benefit. I mean, it's desperately needed, as you mentioned. But pairing those with the improvements of the network flow is essential, or else it's just going to compound the issues.
Sure.
I don't know if that's a comment for you, or if that's a comment for the city.
Yeah, I mean, globally speaking, what we did, we worked with Mr. Conway on the traffic in the area. We actually provided some traffic analysis. One of the benefits, frankly, of our site, going from office to residential, it actually is a reduction in peak travel time, peak trips from the site, because it's an office building today, and as a result, you're getting the 9 to 5 as opposed to, in addition-
Residential is a different peak than office.
And it's coming out of, all of 100% was coming out of Herald, and now it's split. So between the two, like I said, our analysis showed there was actually a net reduction. When they did the calculus in terms of overall traffic impact, they did look at the total build as well. So we looked at those in relationship to what the growth in the area was and all the other projects. So that was all pretty well vetted through the meetings with Mr. Conway. So again, we're happy to continue to have a conversation about how we can work with the city to improve it. but we have spent a lot of time on that in terms of, at least its impacts to, to the functionality of the street as it relates to current traffic versus future traffic.
Yeah, I guess what I would like to avoid is this development being built and these garages becoming active, and everyone's trying to get out of downtown via Herald Street at 5 o'clock while people are also trying to get back to their homes, and there's only one way in and one way out because you can't get in from Washington and you really can't get in from Shawmut, so you have to enter from Herald.
What's that?
You want to get into specifics now, or? That's the bigger picture for sure. All right, just to go quickly through the specific repairs in Canopy, we are reconstructing the sidewalk on Shawmut Ave and Herald Street, as we had mentioned. The sidewalk in Shawmut Ave is a little less than 10 feet wide, so we're proposing a 30-inch band of permeable pavers, so that leaves you about a little less than a 6.5-foot cement concrete sidewalk. With one exception, we have 4 foot 2 inches between what existing traffic control box in the back of these pavers. What's not shown in your plans, and this is I heard from Liza this week, is we've added 2 street trees here. Originally, we thought that sidewalk was too narrow, but we've talked to Sarah and Liza are on board with that. We also have an existing driveway here that's 8 feet, and we're expanding that to 24 feet to access the garage here, and then we have another 14.5-foot opening here to access the proposed building's loading area. And we will be reconstructing our pedestrian ramp. I did show reconstruction of these other ramps, but I've actually sent my traffic engineers back out there because the city has actually been out there since we made these plans. So, but our intent is to have accessible ramps when we're done. We're also looking to see if it's possible to break it from apex to perpendicular. I mean, there is a bridge over here and a garage here, so it might not be possible, but Sarah did ask us to look into that before we come to the public hearing. For Herald Street, we have the sidewalk is it's generally a little under 8 feet, and there's a pinch point that's less than 7 foot 6 inches. So we're providing 24-inch as opposed to 30-inch band of permeable pavers, and that will give you a cement concrete sidewalk a little bit over 5 feet. And as Dante mentioned, there's actually a surface lot that goes out to Herald Street today, and it has 2 curb cuts, one 23 and one 20-foot. And we're consolidating that to one 24-foot wide driveway opening. And also, as far as the street lights, they're actually on the opposite side of the street of both Herald and Shawmut Ave. They're both the old Cobra heads have been retrofitted with the LED lights, I believe. Jumping to the Canopy, we're proposing...
Is there a loading dock on Herald Street?
No. Strictly on Shawmut. And we actually did it as a pull-in bay, so we could get the truck off the street. That's the intention.
Yeah, so actually, I can send you the TAP plans when I get back to the office. We were still working on the text, that's why the TAP is not here.
I kind of remember the history with Mr. Conroy
Okay.
and the driveways.
Rick, if I may interrupt you, on the first floor,
Yes.
in any of the 3 blocks, including your project, are there any commercial activities?
There are no commercial activities in our project. The CCBA site on the corner of Washington and Herald, they're programmed to put in roughly 14,000 to 15,000 square feet of retail space with the purpose of relocating the current CMART supermarket back into that building. Okay, that's at least what the discussions have been thus far. There's a very small component of retail in the church's first floor.
So I believe the CMART brings in a lot of
traffic.
Yep. And how it's time have you guys factored that traffic circulation into?
Actually, if you can pull out that plan again. So one of the requirements through the process with BPDA, from a design standpoint, we actually created a stub road so that the traffic is not queuing in front of the CMART to pull in. They actually pull in a driveway and then either loading incurring here a garage below. So as a result, we've actually created a span of roadway to get traffic off of Washington Street faster and allow for more queuing. That was kind of the storage. Right. That was the negotiation we went through with the city to try and create that space, which CCDA is committed to do.
So have you done any analysis of that with the length, what the volume of vehicles going into that market? Does that roadway stub suffice?
That should be in the article 8, but we can check that for...
Very specific question.
Guy, I know the answer, but I don't think I appreciate your answer saying that the answer is in the Article 80. No, because it's not going to be enough. Because today, if you see how CMART operates, it flows out the whole area. So you're assuming that all of that traffic is adequate in that carved out area. You don't need a PhD to.
I was going to say that I was going to back check that for
So just give it some.
No, that should have been done by your office guys.
Yes.
Not the general public. That's a calculation and analysis based on volume.
I will bring it back.
So bring it back so that way you can tie in your Article 80 review, the permissions or the concerns that you should have on behalf of the client and the city back to these plans. Okay?
Understood.
And how's that going to interact with Mullins Way too?
Well, they said that they asked us to, the piece that we built,
Yep.
they've asked us to reserve. The notion was in the future development, when this parcel gets developed, they're going to double the width of that.
Better align it.
Better
So
align it.
people
It's
can go
almost,
straight
it's almost
through
like a
Mullins
straight
Way.
road. That was what they were looking for, and the reservation, that space was intended.
I think that would
for
be
future
improvement.
development.
Yeah, 'cause
Unfortunately,
that-
we don't control the site south of us. That's the issue.
Yeah.
We just
yeah, I
reserve
understand.
it on our site.
Because I think it would be a network flow improvement if people figured out that, oh boy, if I get over to Harrison, I can come straight across
Correct.
Mullins Way,
Understood.
which could help things.
Right. That was the intention. Forward looking.
No questions on the specific repairs that are coming.
So on one of the things is, we've heard it already today, the BRA initiative, these pedestrian crossways, where are they and how do they work?
Well, let me talk to a record. You want to talk about? We can actually show right on that plan.
Yep.
This one here?
Yeah. So what is created is basically a 14-foot walkway at this section under the BCEC building, which then widens. So that this is the east to west connection across from Shawmut to Washington Street. And then the north to south is basically this pathway, which includes a pocket park that then gets built across and ties into the east to west connection.
So at the new stub roadway and that intersection, is there a crosswalk there now?
The way that it was described, maybe.
Yes,
Gary, you can
there
talk.
is. There is a crosswalk there.
Yes.
Not that it's used by the CMARC folks, because they park in the garage across the street and they wander across Washington wherever they wander.
So are we adding a four-legged crosswalk? I mean, we're bringing pedestrians from, obviously Shawmut over to Washington. That's the intent, is to be a pedestrian generator?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What improvements are we doing there?
Well, that would be done as part of the CCBA project, because that pedestrian way won't exist until that building is constructed when CMARC is demolished. So that's part of their contribution, and it's discussed in the PDA plan of the public realm improvements that they're to make when they do their building.
Again, Mike, and you were here earlier. It's the concern that, yeah, we're all for the pedestrian cross-section, pedestrian ways and stuff, but when you bring them out to unsignalized locations or mid-block, that's a problem.
Yeah.
That's a big problem.
Yeah.
So we're trying to avoid that. And I don't know how we get, get to that earlier, before the BRA,
Well,
when they're pushing
Yeah,
that stuff.
I mean, this is a little bit of the push-pull of
Because
the
if you're
concern
talking
about
pedestrian
unsignalized-
traffic,
yeah.
you're talking vehicular traffic, that's this body here. That's the transportation
No, I
part.
understand
It's not the
completely.
BRA.
Understood. No,
I
not-
understand.
We
Right.
understand completely. It's just that they essentially wanted us to comply with the New York streets, and we were trying to.
But here's the thing, I think there is a solution, and here's where the responsibility on the consultants come. You guys, getting on a soapbox here, you need to understand the city's needs, because you are the same consultants that try to support the city in solving these problems.
Sure.
So when you work with developers, don't perpetuate a problem. Okay? Have some professional responsibility to ensure that what the guidance you are giving to the developers is consistent with the ramifications which we have to suffer with.
Right, when you hear New York streets, you hear streets of pedestrians, that's the Public Works Department and Transportation. You hear building development and buildings, that's the 9th floor.
Understood. Again, we were trying to be responsive, and it wasn't intended.
No, I appreciate that, but Mr. Busa knows what we're discussing here.
Understood. No, well,
I think it works at Mullins Way, Washington, because that crosswalk is there now.
right.
But there's really no volume on Shawmut right now. But if that were to change, there could be an issue on Shawmut. Because it is
Right.
far enough away from an existing crosswalk.
Yep. This just, the other thing that's worth mentioning is as we stand today, south of the BCC site, that sidewalk actually exists today. It doesn't necessarily, it kind of dead ends essentially back here, but that sidewalk is there. So at some point, I think there was a pedestrian pathway through there. Not that that changed anything. I understand what you're after. And the mid-block issue is a problem. I understand that. So I think it's just a kind of a longer-term discussion with you folks.
But it's to protect your residents.
Right, understood. Yeah, absolutely.
So the last item was, we're proposing a canopy at the main residential entry. It extends over the public way by about 3.5 feet, which is about a third of the distance of a 10-foot wide sidewalk. Has 10-foot clear minimum and is heat traced and internally drained. It's pretty slender steel and glass, and it may have like lighted numbers like 112 or something on it. So
it's a very exciting project and much needed, full support. The tiny concerns we have is of the 3 players that are there, you are going first. Try and say this in a polite way. You have the most amount of resources. The last one coming in, who most of this stuff needs to be done, will be the one who has the least amount of resources. And at that point, we might be in an awkward situation trying to chase you or chase someone to get it done correctly. So help us to manage the situation so it doesn't become an awkward situation.
Who's your contractor on this?
Suffolk Construction.
Yeah, Jim McCoy. He's talked with me, so I think he's come up with some good ideas for the CMP on this.
That sidewalk that exists today between your development and the Luther, was that put in by the Luther?
No, that was actually pre-existing as part of the BCs. That's actually on the, it's on the Boston, yeah, it's on the Boston Chinese Evangelical Church. If you drive down that street, there's a very narrow, I think it's probably a 5-foot wide sidewalk that goes back.
This is the former South Cove nursing home
yes.
property?
Other questions or comments from the team? Here, Tom? Members of the public? All right. See you guys back in 2 weeks.
Perfect. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
That is our final item of new business. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. So moved.